Arrakis, desert planet. Know this, it is the year 10,191. Those were the opening words of the 1984 Dune. And now comes, in the year 2021, a retelling of this story by Denis Villeneuve. He is attempting to bring this story to life once again, to show us what we weren't able to see last time. Has it worked? Was the casting as good as it needed to be? Was the money spent enough? Was the time taken enough to bring Frank Herbert's epic series to life? That's what we're going to discuss here today. We're going to talk about the production values, the casting, and all the different aspects that went into this making of this great film. Now, I have my doubts. I have seen this film, went to the theater, sat with other people, watched the reactions, heard their voices, and I have to say, it was a mixed response. Were they able to overcome the shortcomings that befell the 1984 film? A film, in my estimation, that was fantastic and epic in its telling, but that many found wanting, that was left wanting. They were unable to feel like the story was told the way it was meant to be told. I guess we'll find out here together whether House Atreides, House Harkonnen, and the great houses of the Landstroud were brought to life in the way that Denis Villeneuve meant to bring them to life in this epic series. I hope for our sakes that it is and that it will be, and he will be allowed to tell this story. Or are we going to find that we wish that they had stopped with the 1984 film? Only time will tell.
Hello and welcome, my friends. This is Brian the Speaker, here to do a review on the 2021 Dune film by Denis Villeneuve, and also to do a comparison between the 2021 Dune and the 1984 Dune that was done by David Lynch. Now, full disclosure, I am a huge fan of the 1984 film, which kind of concerned me as I was going in to watch this new version of the film done by Villeneuve. Mainly because I was afraid I would be colored against this film almost immediately because of my love for the original 1984 version. And I guess as we're going through this, you can help me decide whether that actually comes across or not. So what I have to say about this is I went and saw this with me, my kids, and my brothers. We're all big Dune fans, especially my brothers. The kids, not so much. That's why I wanted them to come, was to introduce them to the Dune films and hopefully introduce them to a point where they'd want to go and seek out the books and learn about this stuff more on their own. This was a good film. It was not a great film. It was a good film. The vistas, the overall grandeur of the film is very well done. A lot of epic scenery and panoramic views of the different worlds. It was, and so in that regard, it was very good. You can tell that they took the extra time that was caused because of the beer virus and really put it into making this film look epic. And that the production values show it very, very heavily. Now, I don't know whether they just did that automatically or if the extra time helped them. But it was clear to me that a lot of time and energy had gone into making this film look great. It has a very stylized feel, very much like the David Lynch film. Um, the 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 ships and all that stuff are huge and grandiose. I mean, just you can tell that this is a feudal system where all of the power is kind of concentrated in these houses, these big houses of the Landstride or Landstrad. And so it was good in that respect, and I really enjoyed this film. But at the same time, I felt like that there were some things that David Lynch had done much better. But this is definitely worth a watch, but I can't see myself, and here's the deciding factor for me. I can't see myself going back to this film over and over. As where with the David Lynch film, I honestly probably can't tell you how many times I've actually seen it because I've seen it that much. And I've owned it on every format that it's ever been available on, usually multiple times within that format. I owned it multiple times on VHS, wore the tapes out, had to buy new ones. I owned it on DVD. I bought the extended version, had to pay a lot of money for the extended version. And it was a dual-sided disc that had the original trailer or the original film version and then the extended version on the other side. The extended version wasn't as great as I was hoping it was going to be because David Lynch didn't do it. David Lynch got so much crap for this film because here's the problem with Dune. There is so much in the Dune saga, in the Dune lore, that is so hard to condense it into a film. And David Lynch really wasn't given the opportunity that Denis Villeneuve was given, which was to make multiple films. David Lynch had to try and condense the first book, which contains a huge amount of information about what's going on, the political, back and forth between the houses and everything. He had to condense all of that into one film, and it really showed. But the thing that I noticed between these two films was that for as much time as Villeneuve was given, like, it was almost too much. Like, he spent too much time on essential stuff and a little bit too much time on the production side of things, where, like, making everything look super great. That I felt like the acting was not as good as it was in David Lynch's film. And a lot of that, I think, comes from the experience of the cast. I mean, with the 1984 film, we had Kyle MacLachlan as Paul Atreides. We had Francesca Annis as Lady Jessica. We had Patrick Stewart, Sir Patrick Stewart. He wasn't Sir at the time, but he is now, playing Gurney Halleck. We had Sting playing Fade Routha, which this was Sting's really the first film he'd ever been in, but he did good. Sean Young as Chani. We had Brad Dourif as Piter DeBreeze. We had Linda Hunt as Shadout Mapes. We had Virginia Madsen as the Princess Erlin. Jurgen Pinchau as Leto Atreides. We had Kenneth McMillan as Vladimir Harkonnen. Max von Sydow, a living legend, playing Liet Kynes. Richard Jordan, another epic actor, as Duncan Idaho. It just goes on. Dean Stockwell was Dr. Huey. Stilgar was Everett McGill. I mean, you look at the cast for the 1984 film, and you just see experience, gravitas, experience. The cast was made up of veteran, stage and film actors. Like, they knew what they were doing. They'd spent years building their craft, as opposed to the Villeneuve cast, which was Timothy Chalamet, which I don't think he's hardly been in anything that I've seen of. We've got Zendaya, this generation's Madonna. We've got Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica, Jason Momoa as Duncan Idaho, Oscar Isaacs as Leto Atreides, Ian Skarsgård, which was really the biggest veteran actor that I saw in this film. He played Vladimir Harkonnen. We have Dave Bautista as the Beast Raban. We had Xavier Bardem. I can never say that guy's name right. As Stilgar. We had Josh Brolin as Gurney Halleck. David Dastmalchian as Piter Debris. Charlotte Ramling as Gaius Helen Mohiam. We had Chang Chen as Dr. Wellington Yui. We had Stephen McKinley as Thufa Howitt. Sharon Duncan as Liet Kynes. So I could go through this entire thing. But 90% of the people in this film, I'd never heard of them before. I had heard of Jason Momoa, Jason Isaacs, Stellan Skarsgård, Josh Brolin. I'd seen David Dastmalchian in the new Suicide Squad film. But most of the rest of these characters, these actors, I've never heard of them. They may have been in a lot, but I personally had never heard of them. Now, and it shows. Stellan Skarsgård did great as Vladimir Harkonnen. The problem with that was he didn't hardly have any real dialogue. When you see him, it's like quick, one line, two line, boom, there he is, and then he's gone. He's like there was very little of him. Josh Brolin, Josh Brolin's been acting since Goonies. He's been in films for decades and decades. And it shows he did a really great job. But the rest of the cast, they did okay. I mean, it wasn't terrible. And that's what I'm saying. It's not terrible, but you could see the difference. You could see the difference in acting experience that the cast brought to these projects. I have to say that this 2021 version is much, much more direct book adaptation. They followed the book in a lot of areas and showed a lot of what happens in the books better than the 84 film did. But like I said, I think that a lot of that came down to the fact that the time constraints that David Lynch was under. I mean, he had to cram this whole book into like 2 hours, as where Villeneuve is going to get multiple films to do this. So he had to decide, okay, I've got to cut this, and I've got to show this because this is more important, and I've got and like I said, it almost shows that they like Villeneuve had too much time, and he didn't I felt like he focused on some things that didn't necessarily need to be focused on. There's a lot of just wandering around looking at the scenery kind of stuff, not a lot of really great heavy dialogue. And that's one thing I noticed in the David Lynch film as I listened to the audiobook for this, because that's how I read books, because I'm on the road all the time. I listened to the audiobook of the first book of Dune, and what kept striking me is how much David Lynch pulled the dialogue directly from the book, word for word, as where I didn't see that as much in the 2021. They follow the overall storyline of the book very, very well. But as far as directed dialogue, it felt like they took a little bit more license than David Lynch did, which I thought was kind of sad. That I'm here you got all this time and opportunity. I mean, you just, and when the lines were delivered, it was the 2021 version suffered from what I like to call in the acting and directing world of the just be yourself acting model.
What? Those words, is it possible to use them in a sentence together like that?
Which is the worst advice any director or any actor can take for themselves. Just get out there and be yourself.
Oh, shit.
No. Don't get out there and be yourself. Get out there and be the character you're supposed to be playing. And I felt like everybody, with the exception of Ian Skarsgård, Josh Brolin, kind of the veterans of this, they followed their own, like, oh, this is how I am, so this is how I'm going to act. That's not what people want to see. I don't want to see Timothée Chalamet. I don't want to see Zendaya. I want to see Chani, and I want to see Paul Atreides. I want you to be them. And the 2021 version also suffers from what I call the hero in crisis problem.
Because of what?
They did the same thing to Viggo Mortensen in the Lord of the Rings series. When the Lord of the Rings was written, you go back and you read the books. Viggo Mortensen's character of Strider never shows that much doubt in what he was and who he was. He knew who he was. He knew what he was destined to be, and he'd made his peace with it. He was born to rule. He was born to be a leader and had been trained to do so his entire life, even though he was in exile. There isn't this dithering of, I don't want to be a leader. I don't want to. I want to be free to roam the world. And this self-doubt thing, this idea that leadership, is often thrust upon those who don't want it. Now, there is truth to that, but there's also the truth that certain people are born leaders. They're born to lead. They're trained to lead. They are who they are, and they know who they are from the moment they're born. And Paul Atreides, just as in the same case with the Lord of the Rings hero, I'm losing his name, Aragorn, pardon me, they have that going for them. They know who they are. They have been told, pardon me, they have been told and trained their whole lives to be leaders. They have the skills, the talent, the expertise. They are born to lead. Now, all of us are not born leaders. We have to grow into it and come into it our own. I don't know if I'm that kind of person. I try to be, but some people are born leaders, and you just know it. And these are two characters that personify being a born leader. You just are born with the talents to do it. And Paul Atreides was born to be a leader, just like Aragorn was. And it bothers me when Hollywood kind of tries to put all this self-doubt and self-delusional thinking into these characters that weakens them, that makes them look like they're kind of incompetent, self-doubting losers. Neither of these characters were that way. Paul Atreides was a little bit more that way. I mean, he's kind of questioning, but he knows who he is. He is the Duke's son, and he is born to become the next leader of House Atreides. And I never got that from Timothée Chalamet's performance. There's a lot of like weeping and crying, and I don't know, and that bothered me. I'm just like, you're diminishing him as a leader. Doesn't mean you can't be emotional as a leader, but leaders realize that every moment of their lives they're being watched, and that people are looking to them for strength and ability, because the lack of that is deadly to leaders of armies. Like, men who are going to put their lives in your hands do not want to see a weepy 5-year-old in charge. It's just that way, and I felt like that kind of got thrown into this new version of the film. Overall, it's not a bad film. I can see why it's underperforming in the theaters right now, because one, it's on HBO Max, so you can go just watch it, so it's going to suffer for that. But also for the fact that it really doesn't capture that grandeur, that epic story feel. I mean, the vistas and everything capture it, but like the acting and it just doesn't feel like these people understand where they are and what their roles are. I feel like David Lynch captured that so much better in his film. That feeling of crisis and like what's happening and the political dynamics that are driving this situation. And I felt like they spent so much time trying to make sure they had 2 black people in every scene and 2 Chinese people in every scene and 2 women in every scene. And that was another thing. Gender swapping out characters and race swapping out characters I was just like, why? Why? But I mean, this is the new thing, and this is, I mean, Hollywood's never going to get away from this now. And I'm not saying that you have to have like an all-white cast. I'm not. I'm just saying you cannot sacrifice acting ability for multiculturalism. You just can't. You cannot compare Sharon Duncan's performance with Max von Sydow's performance, because there's just no comparison. Max von Sydow brought a gravitas and feel to the role of Liet Kynes that was not brought by Sharon Duncan. Bless her heart. I have nothing against her. I'm sure she's a good actress, but like you put those two, you do scene for scene, and you just tell me who's the believable character, who's the real Liet Kynes. It's Max von Sydow by a mile. The same thing with, I mean, Oscar Isaacs is a pretty decent actor, but he's no Jurgen Pinchau. Jurgen Pinchau's character in the Lynch film was very small. He did not have a lot of speaking lines, but like you felt the weight of him. You felt the weight of a feudal lord, and every word was chosen very carefully because he had to keep up this appearance of being, I am the Duke. I am the Duke Leto Atreides. I am the ruler of House Atreides. I rule an entire world. It was just fantastic. He did such a good job with that role, even given the limited ability or limited screen time that he was given. You felt that weight every time he was on screen. The woman that played Gaius Helen Mohiam, the Reverend Mother, that's Jessica's teacher. You feel that Charlotte Rampling did an adequate job in this version of the film, but in the original, Sian Phillips, oh my gosh, the look and the way she was just epic. There was this majesty, this I am in control. I am the master of the Bene Gesserit. You feel that oozing out of her performance in that film. It is really awesome. What she was able to do with that role. You put those two scenes up where Paul is being tested. You put them up scene for scene, and you tell me who comes away feeling more powerful, who comes away feeling like the Reverend Mother. It's not even close. It's not even close. And Kyle MacLachlan's portrayal as Paul Atreides. Now he was older when he did this role. Timothée Chalamet is younger, which is accurate to the book. Paul Atreides is quite a bit younger in the books. And I think that David Lynch went with a slightly older actor in Kyle MacLachlan to get that performance, to get that life experience that it was needed to portray this role. And I think his portrayal of Paul Atreides is just mind-blowingly good. The seriousness, the fact that he has been raised in this, I will be the leader of House Atreides. You just feel that from him. The opening sequence with Virginia Madsen talking about giving you the background of what's happening. I really liked that in the David Lynch film, and I felt that was lacking. I felt like some of the lore that needed to be built up for those just coming into the Dune franchise for the first time, like you need that. You need somebody to kind of catch you up to what the situation is at hand. And they kind of do that, but it takes them longer in the 2021 version. And because of that, I feel like it left people out right off the bat. I mean, I've read the books and I've seen the Dune film, the 84 version, so many times I can practically quote it to you verbatim. So in answer to my own question at the beginning of this video, the 1984 version comes off being heads and shoulders above this new version for me. And I don't know whether that's because of my bias going into this. But in every scene, I found in my head, I was playing the 1984 version of the film and going, it was just better the last time. And I felt like it was so sad. I was not happy about that. I was not happy to have my preconceived notions, vindicated. I was hoping that they were going to bring the absolute pinnacle of acting and production value and everything to this version of the film. And I just felt like the acting was subpar to what was done in 84. And that was this film's, the 2021 version, that was its Achilles heel, was the acting was just not as good. And so it just kind of pulls everything else down. And that was a real struggle for me. To see that happen. I was just like, oh my gosh, you had all this time and all that. I mean, you have to create this world in people's minds with the performance that you're getting out of your actors. With a film like Dune, you cannot half-ass anything. Nothing can be half-assed. And I just felt like David Lynch was able to pull it off more, despite the fact that he had studio interference, time constraints, limited technical abilities. Like, the visual effects and stuff have come light years ahead since the 1984 film was done. And I felt like if you wanted a better film, all we need to do is get David Lynch to come back in, re-add some of the old footage, redo some of the score to fit it, and then put all new production. Like if you took the production values from this film and put them in the 1984 film, you'd have the epitome of a Dune film. That was all that was lacking. The last thing I wanted to talk about in this was the music score. In 1984, all the music was done by the group Toto, a contemporary kind of rock slash pop band of the 80s, 70s and 80s. And I have that soundtrack. That's how good they did they created an epic score. I mean, it is majesty incarnate for a rock band to come up with a music score is a very, for a majestic film like this is a risky proposition. If you ever want to see how this is done wrong, go watch the movie Lady Hawk, which the music was done by Alan Parsons Project. The film is fantastic, but the music has been dated so badly that it really detracts from how good that film is. Now, I still love Lady Hawk, warts and all. But seriously, when you use a rock band to do like an epic score and stuff like that to write the music for an epic film like this, it can either be really great or it can date itself really bad. And the Toto score stands up today. Like you would not think that come out of an 80s, 70s and 80s rock band. It just really captured the majesty of Dune. As where the music in this one, it kind of, Hans Zimmer, when he did this, from everything I've read and understand, was trying to capture the otherworldliness of music to go along with this film. And it was like he was so intent upon the otherworldliness that he forgot that this is a world made up of humans. Like these are all human characters. This is they've moved on from Earth. Like Earth's not even really a memory anymore. This is a whole different thing and stuff. And it felt like it was too detached from the human experience. Like, oh, I got to get music and instruments that don't sound anything like what we normally have today. And it's just like, why would you do that? They're still human beings. You're just trying to make something sound weird so that you can get credit for being like, oh, this is the best song ever. It's so otherworldly. And like I felt like his motivations were in the right place, but like it took him to the wrong location. And that was sad to me. I was really kind of saddened by all of that. And what I noticed through the film is like the music levels were wrong. There was points in the film where, now I know I'm 47 and I'm older and maybe my hearing's going. I don't know. I don't have hearing aids yet. So, but like the music was so loud that it overpowered the dialogue. Like I had to turn to my brothers and my kids at different points and go, do you know what the hell that was? What did he just say? Because I couldn't understand what was being said because the music was swelling so loud, like it drowned out. There's one section where, this is a mild spoiler, not a big deal, but Lady Jessica and Paul are in a tent that's been buried by the dunes, and like Paul's going through some visions and stuff, and he's struggling, and like the music got so loud and his muttering was so fast and under his breath, like I had no idea what he was saying, no idea whatsoever. I'm like, well, it must have been important because they seemed really intent about it. But like I couldn't understand what was said. I was catching bits and pieces of it, but I'm like, I'm going to have to go back and watch that like 3 times before I can figure out what got said. And that sounded really important, but I can't hear it because they've got the music up too damn loud and he's mumbling too quiet and they've got the ambient noise going. And I'm just like, did you guys watch this before you put it out? Because like I don't know. Did you get people that have 20/20 hearing to watch this film? So you guys figured everybody just, everybody knows what's being said. I don't know if 20/20 hearing is a thing. I don't even know how they determine how good hearing is. Other than they put headphones on your ears like, yeah, anyway. So you all had that test done when you were kids, right? Or am I just that old? So it just, that was a struggle for me. I didn't think the music was as good as the 84 version. I mean, it was good, don't get me wrong, but the levels were bad at times. They needed to alter that and make it more of an undertone instead of like this swelling, overpowering, now I can't hear what the hell anybody's saying kind of thing. And it really struggled because of that. One of the other weak points was there was a lot of over emotional acting instead of just like powerful acting. Timothy Chalet's character suffers from character suffers from the Paul Atreides. Lady Jessica, same thing. She's like weepy and crying and overly emotional, which I'm just like, that is not the way Jessica was portrayed in the books. Jessica is a Bene Gesserit sister. She is a badass. I mean, she knows the weirding way. She has like wicked crazy battle skills that the Bene Gesserits have perfected over thousands of years. Each one of these groups is very powerful in their own way, and the Bene Gesserit sisterhood is really powerful. They are political manipulators behind the scenes, and I'm just like, why is she crying again? And I'm not saying that you can't cry, but like that does not encourage strength when somebody's weepy all the time. And so like I said, the acting and some of the choices that they made, had I been directing, I'd have been like, hey, suck it up, Buttercup. She wouldn't be bawling during this. She'd be emotional. She'd be worried. And Jessica Annis, her portrayal of Jessica in the 84 film, oh my gosh, it was just so good. This majestic, I'm feeling emotional, but I will not show it. Fear is the mind killer, and I felt like that wasn't done very well in this version of the film, where like in the 84 version, it's Paul that's reciting that mantra while he's being tested with the box. Fear is the mind killer. It is the little death that brings total oblivion. And I was just like, and she's out in the hall reciting that, like, you'd think that would be something more that Paul should know, not you. You're standing out in the hall. You just like, there were some really good scenes, with that. It just, like I say, it suffered from some acting issues, and it may have been these guys just weren't really ready for these kind of roles, where so much was going to be demanded of these younger actors. But even some of the veterans kind of fell down. I was just like, Jason Momoa was just being Jason Momoa, which I love Jason Momoa to death. I really do. I love him as an actor and a character, and he just seems like a cool guy. But I was just like, God, he just can't be anybody else. He's just always Jason Momoa. He's just always... I mean, when you cast Jason Momoa, you know exactly what you're getting. You're getting Jason Momoa being Jason Momoa. He doesn't know how to be anybody else. There was one moment in this film where I felt like he broke from his Jason Momoa persona. And it's the moment where he meets Paul after everything's been destroyed and House Atreides has basically been broken and has fallen. And he comes up to Paul and he grabs his hand and he kneels down and he's like, my Lord Duke. And I was just like, holy crap, he can act. I was like, in that moment, I was just like, he stopped being Mr. I'm bad, tough guy. And he was just like, and all of that came crashing down into that intense moment with Paul Atreides. And I was like, holy crap, he did it. And I sat there wishing, why can't he do that all the time? Why can't he do that all the time? Be that guy who has that power in his acting. I don't know. I just so I go see this film, support this film. It's a worthwhile project. He did really try very hard with this. It's not a bad film, not by any stretch of the imagination. It suffers by standing in the shadow of a better acted film that was done previously. But really, the acting and some of the set pieces from the original film is all that is separating these two. Had the acting been on par with the 84 version of the film, it would stand heads and shoulders above the 84 version. But because of the acting limitations of the acting cast, it just falls short. That has to be really my final analysis of this film, is just the acting was not as good. I cannot say that enough, and I've said that a lot in this review. So, but don't let that deter you from going and watching this. Go support this in the theater. It's worth it. It really is worth it. I paid a crap ton of money to take my family to this because I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to the theater and I'm going to spend money on the films that I feel like they deserve it, because there's so few of them out there right now that, you've just got to support what you love by putting your butts in the seat and buying the popcorn and doing the whole 9 yards. You won't regret it. It's a great film. But I would say this probably is a 7.5 for me. Like I say, just because of the acting. Had they been able to pull that off in a better way, this would be a 10. Because it really was spectacular to watch. The vistas and everything are fantastic, out of this world. So I hope you go watch this. I hope you enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed this review and get where I'm coming from on it. Like I say, I came into this with a bias towards one film versus the other, and this film did a lot to kind of assuage that, but it just couldn't pull off a coup and outdo the original. The original is a 9.5 for me. Even with its limitations, the time constraints it was under, the fact that it had to tell this huge story in such a small phrase, and the fact that Dune 84 is one of the few, very, very few examples of where Hollywood took something, changed a major part of it, and it did not suffer because of it. It got even better, in my opinion. The weirding way with the sound, weaponry and stuff like that. I thought that was a brilliant stroke by David Lynch to put that in. I mean, it changes quite a bit because that is not in the books at all. But I thought it really brought something to the film that was unexpected. Most of the time when Hollywood tries to change something, to suit their own thing, it sucks. It's terrible. It's not the way they should have gone with it. This was one of the few exceptions. But anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of this community, and get out there and watch something great. Because there's stuff out there, even if you got to go back and watch the old stuff, but support the new stuff that you can, because there are directors out there that are actually trying, and that's important that we support these people who are trying to make something great, even if they do have to put multicultural oogity boogity stuff in there to try and make themselves feel better. But I think we're just going to have to get used to a certain amount of that, and support it when you can, don't when you can't. But anyway, I love Dune. Love the books. They're fantastic. Get out there. If this movie does nothing else but causes people to go read the books, it's a success in my book. It's one. You will have been introduced to one of the most pivotal science fiction epics that was ever written. Seriously, Frank Herbert created something epic. He created something that other science fiction writers and their directors and filmmakers have gone to and looked at for years to get inspiration for their series, because he did something that was so unbelievably cool with this series. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we will talk to you next time. Bye now.